name is Shafeeq Shajahan, and this is Liver and Lung.
You said you loved me.
Just being kind.
For those of you who don't know, my name is Shafeeq. I'm a musical theatre director, writer, composer, performer, superstar. I'm just kidding, not really. But most importantly, I'm co-founder of Liver and Lung Productions. Liver and Lung Productions is a theatre company that's dedicated to telling fabulous stories. We focus on musical theatre in particular because we are that spectacular. This is a really good time for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all sorts of videos. You can see clips of our show from our portfolio, and also you get to see more of my fabulous face. Why wouldn't you want to do that, right? Okay, so over the past 5 years, I've developed something like 11 to 12 musicals, and I've collected loads of design principles and key learnings that help me when I approach writing a new musical today. Now, I think they may be helpful to you guys too, especially if you're aspiring musical theatre writers, or if you're just a fan of the musical, or Broadway, or the West End, or wherever in the world you are. I plan to release a series of YouTube videos. Each video will represent one part of the musical theatre writing process, but slowly as I release more, I will help you learn how to create perfect musical. This episode is going to be dedicated to finding the most important part of the musical, the story. I only have one question. Are you ready? Okay, so the art of storytelling is a privilege. If you are a professional storyteller, you are a privileged person in life, because storytelling really is one of the biggest gifts of being human. I believe that if you're a storyteller, you are exploring the human condition and pushing the boundaries of what the human experience is. You're taking stories from your ancestors and you're then passing them on to people that are younger than you, and they will pass it on to people that are younger than them. So you actually are a big part of human development. So every good musical has a good story. And now, how do you come up with a good story for a good musical? That's a really difficult question, but it's not really unlike any other creative process. To come up with a good story, you need to first get inspired. Now, inspiration and creativity tend to get a really bad reputation for being these black box processes that are reserved for like artistic geniuses. I tend to think that creativity is definitely more structured a process than you think it is. I have a very methodological way of being creative and getting inspired and finding the right story for my musical. I think the first step is to open your mind and start immersing yourself in environments where you feel like you can be stimulated. If you look at musicals like Cats is proof that stimulus or inspiration can come from literally anything. Andrew Lloyd Webber was literally writing Cats initially because he wanted to use it as an exercise to practice his musical theatre composing skills. Who knew that it would become this multi-award-winning blockbuster musical that made him loads of money eventually? If you look at Stephen Sondheim, and if you look at Sunday in the Park with George, you'll notice that he was inspired by a painting. Now, you can be inspired by whatever you want. You need to close your eyes sometimes and let your mind wander and find things that speak to you. Which comes to my second point. You need to find a story that is personal. Only if it is personal and authentic to you will the final musical product be perfect. You have to keep asking yourself, are you the right person to tell the story that you want to tell? I wrote a musical called Sepet the Musical in 2019, which was a musical adaptation of a really famous Malaysian film that is iconic. I really had to question myself and really introspectively look at the inner mechanics of what made Shafeeq Shajahan to understand that I was the right person to write Sepet the Musical. Sepet the Musical is a musical about two lovers, a Malay girl and a Chinese boy, and how they fall in love. And you know, I'm not Malay, I'm not Chinese, and it wasn't my story to tell. It was actually Leslie Mahmoud's story to tell. She was the director and the writer of the original film. But I really had to kind of, reach deep within me and understand that I understood forbidden love a lot. So I thought I was the right person to tell that musical. So you have to find a story that is authentic to you. My third point is about finding a story that is relevant. adds to the cultural or responds to the cultural zeitgeist. So that's why musicals like Hamilton were so popular. Obviously, Hamilton is an incredible musical, but it's the fact that it's a story that describes the importance of immigrants. The fact that Lin-Manuel Miranda chose a cast that was entirely made up of people of color, and the fact that he modernized a historical story through the use of hip-hop. That in itself spoke to the modern zeitgeist. Not only do you have to ask whether you're the right person to tell the story, you also have to ask whether the story is right to be told now. When I wrote a series of musicals called the Malaya Relive series, I really knew that it was the right time to put on a musical series about my country's history, because my country was at the time in 2019 going through great political shifts. Everyone was questioning what it meant to be Malaysian. So the Malaya Relive series was a way for me to speak to Malaysians and remind them what it meant to be Malaysian. Sometimes the answers may be in the past. I wrote a song for the Malaya Relive series called Trees Are the Verses. It goes like this. Trees are the verses, the earth writes upon the sky. And why I think that really spoke to a lot of people was, firstly, I was using poetry from Khalil Gibran, but secondly, I was using a very Malaysian or very Muslim sounding melody. I was leveraging on the socio-political temperament of the country. I harped on the sounds that they were habituated to hearing, and I tapped into a part of the Malaysian psyche that I thought wasn't tapped before. So I think finding a story that's relevant to today's audience is really important, and relevant to the audiences that you want to tell stories to. My fourth point addresses something that you really need to think about, because musical theater is so complex. You need to find a story that sings. Why are you choosing musical theater as a form? I think that's a really difficult question to answer. Why does your story need to be a musical? Why do your characters need to sing? And to be honest, I don't really have the answer to that question. Sometimes I find that the answers to those questions are quite innate. If you look at a musical like A Chorus Line, I think why A Chorus Line was so successful was because it was so believable that the aspiring actors would have had voices and had a tone of voice like that. You see, when you are writing a musical, when you're putting on a musical, you are expecting your audience to suspend their disbelief. People don't sing, right? People don't sing out loud. It's not a naturalistic approach to telling a story or a human story. The audiences need to suspend their disbelief and enter the magic that you are creating. And for that suspension of disbelief, the story that you choose needs to have a musicality to it. It needs to be right that it sings. If you look at stories like Phantom of the Opera as well, that story really sings. It is about the music of the night, literally. I think Andrew Lloyd Webber does a really good job in making sure that every musical moment is expertly crafted, and it's almost as though you needed music to move the story forward. Music was the only way to convey the emotions of the story that you've selected. Words would not have been enough. So once you've answered all the questions that we've addressed before, you now need to polish up your concept and tidy up. Do a little bit of house cleaning, you know? This involves a few things. Firstly, you need to be able to identify the themes and the super objectives that your musical is trying to achieve. For example, in A Chorus Line, the super objective is clear. It's about dreams, and it's about expectations and what happens when expectations are not met. In musicals like Wicked, the super objectives are very clear. What Stephen Schwartz tries to achieve in the story is that he is addressing good versus evil and the very grey aspects of morality, because not everyone is as wicked as they seem. After you've kind of settled on the super objective, you then need to come up with a byline or a one-liner that explains the musical's concept in a jazzy and sexy way. So for example, in Malaya Relive, The Penang Riots, a musical I wrote in 2019, the byline is simple. It's a musical about a Hokkien lady and how she is the lady of her house, but tensions escalate as gang warfare and opium corrupts her environment, causing her demise. In 1867, Georgetown. With musicals like A Chorus Line, the byline is simple as well. It's about a group of New York actors who just want to make it big on Broadway. Now, these bylines are really important because that's how you market your musical, and they have to hook your audiences in from the beginning. If they're not interesting enough, then you've not done your job. All right, that's it. That's a little bit of a intro to musical theatre writing. I hope it was helpful. This is going to be a series. We've touched finding the right story for your musical. In the next episode, I'll help you find the right sound to your musical. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the content of this video. Why don't you do this? Why don't you leave a comment in the comment section and tell me about musicals that you like and why do you think their stories are effective and amazing. My name is Shafeeq Shajahan. I'm a musical theatre director, writer, composer, co-founder of Liver and Lung Productions. And I have one thing to say: be fabulous. Bye.